Red Film Radio. I'm Laura della Corte from the 82nd edition Venice Film Festival, and today I'm glad to be here with Alexander Rodnyansky and Andriy Alferov, the director and producer of Notes of a True Criminal, in the section Out of Competition. So I would like to start to ask you how it feels to be here in Venice, and how you started with this personal story, because I know that you have come back to the documentary after a hiatus of 31 years. Am I correct?
Absolutely. So it's great to be here on one side. It's amazing. And I've been here many times presenting my movies as a producer in a competition or in Horizonte. But this is a completely different experience with what we have today when I am again a director, not just a producer. Because, as a producer, you still have someone to be in charge of, emotional side of this experience. And now, because I'm also talking about very personal issues, about the events that formed not only the history of my country, but the history of my family that affected and deeply damaged. And this is the course of the endless war. So in order to be correct, in order to be honest, you need to be very, very open. It makes you totally naked. That's why when you come here as a director with the movie which tells your personal story, you feel yourself absolutely overexposed. And that's not always a very comfortable feeling.
Indeed. And I would like to ask you, continuing on that. Yeah, please go.
So it's for me, it's very important to be. I'm very happy to be here because I spent more than 17 years in Venice Film Festival. Usually I came here as a film critic, and the second time I came with a movie. The first time 2 years ago with a classic Ukrainian movie by Sergei Parajanov, and we presented it with Alexander in Venice Classics section. And of course, it's very important to be here at this year with our documentary.
Yeah, and continuing on that, you have to work on a lot of footage. You say that one of the turning point of your life is when you went to the cinema orbit and you see for the first time, the work of your professor, Felix Sobolev.
Yes.
And from that, you started as, to understand, I think, more like how it was to be also so strict on work and to represent a documentary that is, for me at least, not so easy to see. And so I would like to ask you how it was to have all the footage. How did you find, for example, the drone scenes, and why did you decide to put that scene in that particular moment, and also to tell the story of your professor and how you collaborate with Andriy?
He's not just a professor, he was one of the best filmmakers in the country, in the Soviet Union. And we had a system of film education in the film schools, which is based on an idea of workshops. So you have the great filmmaker, like Bertolucci or someone really important ones. We had Tarkovsky or Hutseyev, whatever, who is selecting his students, like 5 to 10 people, every 1 year for 5 years. And we spent 5 years together. So he was not a professor, he was an acting filmmaker doing his own movies. And we were actually spending the time in a film school and also working as an assistant with him. And my particular, as we said, master, that's how it's called, was a very tough guy. And he've chosen 5 people and just 3 managed to graduate from the school, and only me, who is still working in the film industry. So before I started to produce movies, and I was privileged to work with the most important filmmakers, some really important American and the European filmmakers, I was doing my own films. And so the idea of this film was to connect the scenes shot during the contemporary current war, Russian-Ukrainian war, was what I shot in the end of 80s and the beginning of 90s, was what was shot by my grandfather during World War II. But because everyone in my family was a documentary filmmaker, some of them were absolutely classical ones. And that's why I wanted to tell this story also in so many dimensions to tell the story about some, the personal experience and experience of many generations, which is very universal, I believe, for the countries like ours, which are experiencing the endless wars. But also a story of documentaries and movies, that exist in these circumstances. That's why I had a lot of footage shot by me and shot by my family, and I kept it even in my home.
How was the collaboration with?
It was a brilliant, really big, because I'm a big fan of Alexander's documentaries. I'm keeping all of them in my computer. And we organized his like a retrospective in Kyiv a couple of years ago. And it was an amazing moment when we decide to make his documentary together.
And, I was thinking about another scene that we see when you talk about also the events of Babyn Yar and Chernobyl. In Chernobyl, you have this meeting with the family of Mansour, and he said that he was used to, to the war, but he was not used to be at peace. And that was one of, the phrases that resonated a lot, because it was, like a concept that is so simple, but, when you just think about it, it's incredible. And so I would like also to ask you, I was for you to go deeper again into the...
Well, it's not easy. Even you asked, I never responded and elaborated your question about this drone footage. Unfortunately, it's everywhere. This war is the most documented war in the human history. It's not just documented like was, let's say, the war in Gulf, where CNN was broadcasting directly from all over, the Iraq 24/7. No, this is the war broadcasted by millions of people having smartphones. And this war has become the war of drones. This is the main weapon, and this is why Ukrainian and Russian army have an experience no one has. This is because they were first to actually faced with this kind of war. You would never see tanks, you would never see cars, you would never see anything like it was just 15 years ago. During the wars on the battlefield there. And once they shoot people, they shoot also the image, and then they publish it. If you Google up the drone footage in YouTube, you would find millions of hours of all these killings. It's so horrible sometimes. And we used just, very few, and we never tried to make the people going through the very, disturbing experience with all this footage. And this is the same with Chernobyl. I was sent to Chernobyl as a young filmmaker, and I can tell you I was absolutely happy, because being a very young filmmaker, getting the chance to shoot something historic, this is what you feel you are designed for, And I remember all these people who were trying to solve the problem of the disaster in Chernobyl and who were dying after that because they got the radiation in a scale which was absolutely impossible for living. And the same with everything, I shot Mansour. I never used this footage in the movie, but I shot him also in Tajikistan. And that's where we found him. And we shot some killings in Tajikistan during the civil war in the end of the 80s. It was horrible. I never wanted to go deeply into that kind of experience. It would make this movie not focused on what we were talking about, the war in Ukraine. But it was horrible, I wouldn't even tell you the stories we managed to shoot it that year. So these guys with the kids, they just tried to survive. And this is the story in the end of the day of the human survival, how to survive through these wars and how to protect the human nature inside of you, to stay as a human, to keep, go on.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor talking to you. We've been talking with Alexander Rodnyansky Andriy Alferov. This is Laura Della Corte for Fred the Festival Insider. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.